All right, we are live. Well, hello and welcome everybody to Southbound, an NFL podcast where we talk about, among other things, our love for the New Orleans Saints and just a general 30,000 foot view of the NFL. My name is Matt
I'm the Quacker.
Quacker. How you doing today?
Doing good. So halfway through the week, uh, good weekend coming up. So I'm looking forward to this backside of the week here.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So before we go too far, obviously we want to mention. So today's is Wednesday, September the 10th. Tomorrow is you're not gonna believe this, but the 24th anniversary of 9/11. Hard to believe, you know.
Yeah, it seems like it just happened, and we blinked, and it's been 24 years for 9/11, 20 years for Hurricane Katrina. Time is just speeding by. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, for
I still
sure.
remember that day so vividly.
Yeah, I do too. I was in 10th grade and I was in homeroom, and it sounds funny to say now, but I mean it was it it wasn't that unusual back then. I grew up in Florida, and um I was in homeroom, and a teacher popped in and said a plane hit the World Trade Center. And so I remember thinking, I've heard of the World Trade Center, but I don't know what it is, right?
Hmm.
And so then our homeroom teacher, he was one of the football coaches, and he in my high school in homeroom, we didn't really do a whole lot. It was mainly for like announcements, or if you needed to, like, if there was some like sheet that every student had to fill out, we would do that. So we weren't doing anything in our homeroom because we only met like once a month anyway. So he turned on the news, and then that turned into us um, being sort of like shuffled along. Our high school was unique because it was a really big high school, but
Hmm.
I grew up like literally about 10 minutes away from one of the largest Air Force bases in the country, or well, in the world for that matter, but for the American military. So like half or more of the students that I went to school with, and like I said, it was a very big school, uh, lived on base or had parents who worked on base. So our school, which was normally out at 1:45, didn't get out to like 4 because the base was on lockdown. Um, and so we kind of just wound up like watching the news basically all day because that was in the morning. And then I came home, and I'll never forget this. Chad, you'll think this is cool if I haven't told you this before. The sidewalk of my house, the house that I grew up in, went straight, like from the fence, like it went straight up. It was a straight walk about, I don't know, 50 feet from the fence to the front door. And so I'm walking up this this sidewalk, and I'm not kidding. It was like a Michael Bay movie, and I'm not a fan of Michael Bay movies, but in generally speaking, I'm not. But the way this sequence was like a Michael Bay movie. So I heard a noise, and it was jets, which is very normal where I grew up. And I remember
Hmm.
looking up, and straight over my head were five F-15s flying in formation, um, flying the perimeter of the base. And I just remember that was one of those moments in my life that I will never, ever, ever forget, because it was just like, wow. Because I grew up here in the jet noise, and we had bomb testing sites close by, so I'd hear bombs go off, and all these different things. But so I was used to it. But that was the first time in my life
Right.
where I saw the jets, and I was like, man, I'm so thankful for that. So anyway,
Hmm.
that was my 9/11 story.
Was that the y'all's old house, or was that the one that y'all moved into later on?
No, no, it was the house
I, I
I lived in that house until I was a freshman in college. So like
okay.
November after my freshman year, we moved. So it was the house that was a little closer to the water than the newer one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was at work that day, and after I graduated high school, I worked for a couple of years before I went to back to school, and so I was at work that day, so I didn't get to follow as much because we were busy. You know, anytime we'd go in, we would get updates and stuff, but um, it wasn't until I got home that evening that I really kind of got the full picture of what had happened. So my 9/11 experience is a lot different. Um, and the next year, you know, I was in school and they did the 1 year remembrance. Um, yeah, so uh, that was more surreal to me than the actual day because it was just a full day of work and just kind of little bits and pieces here and there.
Mm-hmm.
It was not until I was sitting in an auditorium like after the first year that I was like, whew, I mean, of course we all knew what was happening with our troops and everything else at that point, but um, yeah, it was you know being in the workforce at that point, we weren't able to stop, so
Sure.
it's just a lot different. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely crazy. So definitely keep that in your thoughts and prayers tomorrow. All right, so let's jump into our review from week one. And holy cow, did we have some crazy games? And what I want
Boy,
to do,
how.
we're gonna kind of talk about these in chronological order. Um, we we as always we will spend more time on the NFC South and Saints. Well, I say as always. Typically, we will spend more time on the NFC South and the Saints in particular. This week, however, there weren't a lot of fireworks in the NFC South, so we're going to probably spend most of our time elsewhere. But we'll just see how it all shakes out. All right, so to start, it's funny. I got home Thursday, and I was just like, do you ever have one of those days like, and I don't have these very often, but where you're just not in a good mood and you don't really know why.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I was just kind of irritable and like I was just like I was I don't even really know. I just wasn't in a good mood, and so I got home and I turned the game on and I was like, whatever. Like, this is the game. And the only thing I really remember, and of course I'm talking about the Cowboys at the Eagles. The only thing I really remember from the game was the Jalen Carter incident. Now I've had my issues with his display of character since he's been in the league, and so that wasn't a super surprising thing to me. But um, what was a little more surprising, and we won't dwell on this, but that we saw that from a high-profile college team 2 days later. That
Mm-hmm.
obviously resulted in the same thing: the player being kicked out of the game. So. Nothing too crazy. The Cowboys started out with their first drive looking pretty good, and then the Eagles sort of slowly took over. Did you get a chance to watch any of the Cowboys-Eagles game?
A little bit of it. I was working. I had it on uh, as I was driving, just kind of like some background noise so I could hear it. And up to the point of the weather stoppage,
Mm-hmm.
and I figured I would get some kind of notification saying the game was back on. I did not, and when I got home, it was almost over, but nothing had happened.
Yeah,
So
I,
it was like
it was
after
funny.
that weather delay, it was. I don't even know if there's another score in the game. I think it just
I
kind of.
can't I can't remember if there was or not, but I did. I actually started getting a little bit more interested around the time when the weather delay started, and they started doing when they're like doing their auxiliary coverage to kill time. I started to get into it, and so then I by the end of it, I was really invested. And the Sunday night crew for NBC, which of course is the crew that did this game,
Mm-hmm.
they are always one of my favorites.
Yeah.
In fact, I think now I'm not the biggest fan of Joe Buck. I mean, but I don't hate him. I just think he has no emotion. um, but he's good. he's just kind of emotionless. Like, I'll never forget when Garrett Hartley kicked the field goal in the NFC Championship against Minnesota that sent New Orleans to their first Super Bowl. There are so many clips out there of Joe Buck's call, and he just goes, and Hartley sends the Saints to the Super Bowl. And it's just like, gosh, man, like, show some emotion.
Right.
But
Yeah.
overall, sorry, I just conflated two things. They're the Monday Night Crew, which we saw later. Sorry, so in my mind, I was about to say, let me give you some inside baseball and why I just got confused and started talking about Joe Buck. I was gonna say the Monday Night Crew is right up there with the Sunday Night Crew, which they are, but the one exception to that is I'm not a huge Joe Buck fan, but the Sunday Night Crew, I like all of them. Anyway, that's why my mind went to Joe Buck, even though he's not on the Sunday Night Crew. So let's move to the Chiefs-Chargers on Friday. Oh, by the way, the Eagles won that game 24-20. And yeah, it looks like you're right. I'm looking at the box score. The Eagles scored a field goal in the third, which is the quarter that the weather delay was initiated. So it may very well have been that they kicked that before the weather delay.
I think so.
All right, so let's move to the Chiefs-Chargers on Friday, and I need to amend an error that I made last week when I said that the Chargers were hosting the Chiefs, and then 2 days later the Rams were hosting their game. Well, the Chargers were the home team, but it was in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and I should have known that. I think I did know that. I just looked at who the home team was, so I feel like a doofus for like going out of my way to point out that game was in LA when in fact it was in South America.
You're about 5,000 miles away. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the game, and then there's a couple other things I want to talk about with that are related to the game. So honestly, I felt like the Chargers won the game 27-21. I didn't feel like the Chiefs played bad. I felt like Herbert and the Chargers just really played good, and I with my predictions. My division predictions before the season, I felt like the Chargers were going to have a pretty good year. Now, it's one game. Last year, the Saints started 2-0, and everybody was saying they were one of the best teams in the NFL, and they didn't make the playoffs. So I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse, but they did look good. But I want to talk about Travis Kelce for a second because I saw something, and I've always kind of liked him. As long as they're not talking about Taylor Swift, I like pretty much everything I've seen from Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't hate Taylor Swift. I just, when I'm watching football, I don't want to talk about Taylor Swift. I want to talk about football. I saw, it was just today actually, I saw him commenting on his New Heights podcast that he does with his brother, where he said, he was kind of beating himself up because obviously Worthy went out like one of the first offensive plays of the game. Travis Kelce ran into him, and it at first it looked like he kind of got pushed into him or like guided into him, but when you looked at it further, he ran his route a little too close to Worthy, and it took Worthy out for the rest of the game. And so Travis was beating himself up. Now, not that I started this by saying I like what I saw. I don't want him to beat himself up, but I felt like it was very classy of him because I don't know. None of us know, it could be that Worthy didn't run the exact route he was supposed to. I mean, it could have been a lot of things, but Travis Kelce owned it completely. He said, I've been in the league 13 years. I should have known better. And so I felt like that was just another one of those things to add to the list of classy things I've seen from the Kelce brothers when they're being called to answer for something, anyway, I thought that was neat because it was obviously heartbreaking, but I felt like that was a really good teammate moment.
Yeah. I didn't get to watch the game. I've seen a couple clips here and there, and I had seen that right before we came on. I was reading it, and they were running crossing routes. Sounds like maybe they were supposed to be running some kind of pick play or something like that. And Kelce.
If it's not called, it's a rub. It's a rub if
Right.
you get away with it. It's a pick if you don't.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to run a pick, but
Yeah. Um, whatever you want to call it, it sounds like that they were running something like that, and they just got too close and collided. And Kelsey's a whole lot bigger than Worthy. Um, and unfortunately, Worthy's out, and it looks like he's going to be out this week as well. Um, but yeah, I thought the same thing. I have never seen anything out of him that I didn't like, except for maybe in the last Super Bowl they won when he ran up and ran into
Andy Reid.
yes, I was wanting to call. I was seeing his face. I was like the walrus. That's all I could think was. I couldn't think of the name. Yeah, Andy. When he bumped into Andy Reid, was yelling, and I knew in the moment what that was about. It was a bad look. But
bad look. But Andy Reid and Travis Kelce both have have talked about that, and it seems like both of them were kind of like it's football,
Yeah.
So yeah, bad look. But I don't think it hurt their relationship at all.
Oh no, not at all. I mean, like Andy knew it was what it was in that moment. I mean, it was just an optics thing,
Sure.
But yeah, I've always been a big fan of Kelsey's. I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. You've never seen anything about him off field that makes you think, well, this is just an act. So
yeah. Well, they just seem to both Kelce brothers seem to just be pretty level-headed in terms like they're crazy like Gronk, but it's the same thing I'd say about Gronk. They seem to be pretty stand-up guys. Now, I will push back on one thing. I don't know if I agree that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and here's why. I think he's a Hall of Famer, but I think he has been the one constant for Patrick Mahomes on the best franchise we've seen in the last 10 years. But when you stack him up against every tight end that we've seen who's great, I think he's very, very good. I don't know if I'd call him like one of the greatest ever. So I definitely think he's a Hall of Famer. This isn't the Eli Manning debate whether he should or shouldn't be in. I think he will get in. I don't know that I agree that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but all the same, I think he'll be in Canton before it's all said and done.
Yeah. And I still think he's got a few years to go. So, any tight ends that would maybe kind of be in that similar situation like a Gronk, that they'll already be in.
Yeah.
By the time he's eligible. So
I mean, I personally think this is his last year. I think this is it.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, he hasn't said that, but in my mind, I think this is it. I mean, tight end's a very physical position because if you've never played football before, not only are you a receiver, where you're getting tackled when you have the ball unless you score a touchdown, but you're also doing a lot of blocking, of blocking. And Travis Kelce, they're in at least 11 personnel, which is one running back, one tight end. Like I would say probably 85% of the time, they're almost never like in a 5 wide or whatever. So, and I like to tell this story. When I was, when I was growing up, I was a cornerback, and I loved playing defense. And one practice, our coach, just as an exercise, had us switch. So if you're offensive line, you play defensive line. If you're a linebacker, you're a running back. If you're, so on and so forth. And by the way, our safeties were quarterbacks, and that was fun. But so the corners were receivers, and the whole exercise was designed to get us to get in the mindset of who you're going against, who your direct opponent is. And the next day, I had never been so sore in my life. See, as a cornerback, you're doing a lot of running, you're doing a lot of arm tackling. You'll occasionally do a full body tackle. Doesn't happen a lot. But it's totally different when you're the one getting hit play after play after play I was so sore. So sore. And you have to understand that the NFL receivers, like 10 receptions in a game is a ton of receptions. You're not getting a lot. But Travis Kelce is probably getting between 8 and 12 targets a game on top of his blocking. So in my mind, I think that just the physical requirement of the position plus his age, and how frequently they use him, I think this is it. But we'll see, though.
One thing that, he doesn't line up on the line every play because they split him out quite a bit. He's more of a slot receiver, kind of like Jimmy Graham was, than he is your prototypical tight end. Now, they'll bring him in.
You're right. He's not traditionally a blocking tight end, but tight ends still have to block. I mean, that's just the nature of the position.
Yeah. But a lot of his blocking is downfield, where he's going against.
I don't care. It's still physical. These dudes are monsters. I mean, everything you're saying is valid. Like, I agree with it. I just think when you're talking about NFL players, I don't think it matters if it's at the line of scrimmage or downfield. I think it's all crappy, But all right, so one more thing, and by the way, we spent a little bit more time on this because I felt like there were some good talking points. But don't fret, because there's only 3 more games that I can think of that we're going to spend this much time on. But one more thing I want to talk about. YouTube covered this game, and I thought it was cool that they did it because they offered it for free. And there's so many wire cutters now that there are certain people who otherwise would not have been able to watch the game. I thought the coverage was good. They did not have a Netflix event where, it freaked
crashed
out in the middle. Yeah, so that was cool. I'm not going to hate on YouTube too much for this, but there were 2 things I didn't like. And both of them, I think I can give them a pass because this is their first go-around. The first thing was, while I liked the idea of, and this is one of those things that I'll probably lose this argument ultimately, because I understand that their demographic was a lot of Gen Zers, and I'm not in Gen Z. But I liked the idea of them using some of the most popular YouTubers throughout the game. Like, they had a guy on the sidelines who was kind of like the sideline. They had a traditional sideline reporter, but then they had like a sideline YouTube guy. They had these auxiliary streams with certain YouTubers. They had Mr. Beast, which was fine, except it was so painfully obvious that they pre-recorded every one of those segments. So that was a little weird. I wish they would have done that live. And Mr. Beast is the most popular YouTuber in the world. I feel like they could have done that infrastructure pretty easily. And the best one of those segments, I thought, and I don't even know her name, but that girl who does like crazy things, she went out to the Chargers practice facility and, did some reception exercises and kicking exercises. And I think she also got with like a linebacker, defensive end, or something to tackle. I thought that was cool. The other stuff I was like, I could have done without. But I feel like that's YouTube's niche, so like I don't feel like that was for me anyway, and so that's fine. The other thing was Cam Newton was awful. Like, he was awful. And I'm not going to pick on a guy for not having good grammar unless your whole job is to communicate clearly so that people can understand you. He had terrible like sentence structure, and nothing he said made sense, and he went off script several times, to the point that the girl, who is clearly not a sports broadcaster, was having to try and reel him back in. That was bad. So I think Cam Newton is great with like First Take and some of those like pundit type shows. I did not like him on the desk,
So was he calling the game, or
no,
what
no.
was
He was like what Larry Fitzgerald and Ryan Fitzpatrick do. He's like the halftime crew or whatever, So
okay.
Pre-game, halftime, post-game, he was out there with one. It was just he and a girl. Now the girl, I feel like, did a pretty good job. You could tell she wasn't I think she is in some sort of journalism for sure because she was pretty good as a broadcaster. But you could just tell sports wasn't her first thing. But she did a really good job. I feel like if they had one or two other people with Cam, it would have been a lot less glaring. The problem was it was just her and Cam. Now, he did say one thing at the very end when they did a post-game interview with two of the Chargers. He said the one thing I thought he said that had value on Friday was he talked about he said and this was more anecdotal, but he said, what people who don't play pro football don't know is the best part of being an NFL player is the ride home after a win. And he was talking about like the snacks and what they do, and it's like a party. And they sort of talked about that for a few minutes, so I thought that was good. Again, I feel like Cam's fine on some of those ESPN shows. I feel like he would have been probably okay if there were a handful of other guys like Monday night or Thursday night do. I didn't think it worked very well when it was just him having to carry the football knowledge. So, but anyway, that's my rant. And like I said, I'm going to give him a pass. This is their first time doing, an NFL broadcast live like this, and they did it for free. So all told, I feel like it was a really good experience, but I mean, I think I can do without it, in the future.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we're going to run through these pretty quickly, and then we're going to circle back to a couple. So the rest of the scores: Cardinals beat the Saints 20-13. Buccaneers beat the Falcons 23-20. Both of those are road wins. Well, this next one is too. Bengals beat the Browns 17-16. The Dolphins got absolutely waxed by the Colts 33-8. And I feel like I seem to remember saying the Dolphins were gonna take a downward turn. I don't know that you disagreed. I just remember saying that. So, but again, it's week 1, so we'll see. The Raiders, led by Pete Carroll, won 20-13 over the Patriots in Foxborough. The Steelers went to New Jersey to play the New York Jets, and for I didn't think they were going to win this game till the very end when they did. So they won 34-32. It wasn't ever like, I think the Jets at one point had like a 10 or 12 point lead, but it was never like a blowout. It was just the Jets were just always ahead until the end. But really, I felt really good for Justin Fields, even though they lost. I'm not an Ohio State fan. I don't have any connection to Justin Fields, but I feel like he's kind of been done dirty since he's been in the league. And I felt really good for him because, he is playing on a team with a pulse. Now, one bad thing is I don't feel like he's at an organization that's run very well, kind of like where he was in Chicago. However, it seems like they've got something working, so that's good. Then the Giants went to Washington and lost 21-6. I don't think anybody's surprised by that, and I don't think the Giants are going to be better until they put Jackson Dart on the field, but I think it's coming. The Panthers lost to the Jaguars 26-10 in Jacksonville, and anytime the Panthers can take an L, I'm all for it. The Broncos beat the Titans in Denver 20-12. The 49ers went to Seattle and beat the Seahawks 17-13. Packers beat the Lions in Green Bay 27-13. Lots of 13. I didn't realize how many teams scored 13 points this week. The Texans lost to the Rams 14-9. Probably the biggest surprise of the week was that one. I think everybody expected the Texans to be really good. And again, I'm not trying to overreact. I'm just saying I don't know that many people picked the Texans to lose this game.
They didn't score 13.
Yeah, what's that?
So they didn't score 13.
They didn't. You're right. But they did only score 3 in the first quarter and 6 in the second quarter, and nothing in the third and fourth. So, all right. So, besides the Saints game, because we'll save that for last, any other notes in those games before we head to the final 2 games of the week?
I was reading where with the Tennessee Denver game that Cam Wolbert's actually playing pretty well in his first NFL start. Like they're saying that he looks like the real deal.
There were a lot of drops in that game.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I started reading. That there was a lot of receivers not holding to the ball. Um, the Cincinnati Cleveland game, um, Cleveland's defense. I mean, they held Burrow to like 100 and something yards passing. Um, it's a very defensive game. Like the Bengals actually got a week 1 or 2 win for the first time in a while. Like they've had really slow starts. I I want to say that since Burrow came in the league, I think they've only won like 1 or 2 games in the first 2 games of the season. In those 5 or 6 years. So they finally get off the snide there. Um, the Pittsburgh New York Giants game, New York Jets game. The on my ESPN thing, the Pittsburgh New York Jets and the New York Giants Washington game are right beside each other. So it just it went across. You know, the quarterbacks were playing. Because Fields played with Pittsburgh last year, and of course Rodgers with the Jets last year. So they were playing their former teams, and
and they both played better. Well, Fields played good for the Steelers last year, but for some reason they felt like they needed to put Wilson in. So
yeah, but the win, the field goal at the end by Boswell, that's all things that you just you expect to see Pittsburgh play well, especially early in the season. They're one of the most consistent franchises, especially under Tomlinson. I don't think he's never had a losing season.
Right.
And with this being Rodgers' last season, I expect to see them.
Well, I don't think Rodgers necessarily said this is his last season.
I thought I had.
No, he said 2 days, like 2 or 3 days ago, like right ahead of the game, he said, he feels like he could play 3 or 4 more years. He didn't say he was going to. He said he feels like he could. Now, he did only sign a 1-year contract, but typically older players like that will only sign 1-year contracts.
I thought I had heard him say in the off season that this is going to be his last year. I may not have, but yeah. What was the Seattle San Francisco game? That was one that was very close, very back and forth. And apparently Brock Purdy got hurt during the game, and he could miss multiple weeks. He won't be playing this week when they go to New Orleans to play the Saints. So that's if he's out multiple weeks, that could be a big loss for the 49ers. Opening week there.
So I just looked it up, and he said on the Pat McAfee show in McAfee. I don't know why I said McAfee. He in June, he said he's pretty sure this is it, talking about the 2025 season. But then, according to Google AI, he contradicted that by saying he feels like he could play 3 or 4 more years. So who knows? I think this will be his last year, but I don't think there's been. I don't think there's an official declaration of retirement.
Okay. Yeah, I not heard anything since that statement about this, being his last year. So,
well, he didn't say I remember it was his last year. The quote says, "Pretty sure this is it." Is what all it says. So,
yeah.
Yeah, the Purdy news is interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about that as we talk about the Saints. So let's finish up this these final 2 games. So the Ravens went to the Bills, and a little bit of inside baseball. So on our college podcast, Alumni House, We don't normally record on Sundays, but we were recording while this game was on, and both of us had the game on. But I have it to where I can kind of see it like while I'm recording. I know Quacker, you can have to like turn your head or whatever, but we got done recording, and Quacker says, he goes, "Man, the Bills are getting whipped," and I was like, "I know." And I was like disappointed. We were kind of talking about what we were going to do for the next show and some of that stuff, just housekeeping type stuff. And then all of a sudden, the Bills score a touchdown, and then Henry fumbles. And I said to Chad, I said, "Hey, I need to go. I want to watch the rest of this." And I think he felt the same way. So obviously, what we're referring to is the Bills scored 16 points in the last 4 minutes, but that was 3 scores because they'd failed two 2-point conversions. And they recorded a fumble from Derrick Henry. So they came back and beat the Ravens on a last-second field goal, 41-40. Matt Prater had been there. I felt weird about this. They kept talking about Prater being there for like 70 hours or whatever it was and recovering. But I'm thinking, yeah, but if there's any kicker in the NFL, I mean, this dude's been around since I was like 7, not really, but he's been around forever. And I'm like, dude, this guy knows the deal. Like he knows how to move to a place and just do it.
Just go out there and put it between the uprights. That's his job.
Yeah, so. And he did, and he's good at it. He's been very successful at it, which is why he's still playing. I don't know how old he is.
41.
Okay, that's what I had in my head, but I didn't want to say it because I wasn't sure. I knew he was, an elder statesman for sure. But congratulations to Josh Allen and the Bills, and I felt like this was a really good tone setter for the Bills. I know you're a sucker for the not underdog, but for the stories like this where the Bills have been so close so many times. And I just kind of like the Bills. I've always liked their uniforms. I like Josh Allen. All of that. So that was really cool. I was excited to see that. And then Monday, I was sitting at my desk doing some work at home, and I was really bummed because I just don't really love the Bears. And so like I don't necessarily care about the Vikings, but I wanted them to win, and I in one of my fantasy leagues, I needed the Bears defense to do bad, so that kind of helped me. It didn't help me because I lost, but I'm watching the Monday night game, and the Bears are, they're winning, and they're winning convincingly. And then, so, going into the fourth quarter, it was 17-6. And the Bears tacked on another touchdown in the fourth, but the final score is 27-24 because the Vikings scored 3 touchdowns in the final stanza. And J.J. McCarthy, who obviously won a national championship at Michigan, not a rookie, but didn't play last year. I guess he's also from the Chicago area, which made it, and I think he grew up a Bears fan, so made it sweeter for him. But I just thought it was cool. And the last 2 games of the week, we got really epic comebacks. And all told, other than the Miami Colts game, which was a big surprise because I thought the Colts were gonna kind of be hot garbage, so I didn't have a lot of expectations for that game. But other than that game where the Colts just like smacked the Dolphins, most of the games were pretty close. Commanders Giants was 21-6, but it wasn't really like your typical like blowout. I mean, it was just sort of lethargic, like the Commanders scored a touchdown in the first, second, and fourth, and the Giants got field goals in the second and third. So, it was kind of one of those slow burn type games. But overall, week 1 was really, really fun, and I really enjoyed it. So, before we talk about week 2 and just kind of give a heads up on the schedule for week 2 and talk a little bit about the Saints game with Purdy being out, let's talk about the Saints. So I'll tell you, and I kind of already shared this with you a little bit, mostly what I expected. I thought the defense was good except on third down. I felt like and I also think that this is the most athletic and fastest quarterback they will play all season. So I think a lot of that will get worked out by just not playing against oh my gosh, why am I forgetting his name?
Kyler Murray.
Yeah, Kyler. I don't know why. I could see his face, but I couldn't think of his name. I think a lot of that will get worked out by them not playing against Kyler Murray. But yeah, so third down defense was really bad. I didn't love that. Offense started out slow. Kamara looks good. I'll tell you what's funny. I want to see this offense with Taysom Hill because as the game progressed, Rattler started to look more comfortable and more in sync. And at the end of the game, the third down play before the failed fourth down conversion was a perfect pass, but it was well covered. And I mean, he probably should have caught it, but it was well covered, and he put it right in the only spot that it could be. And that wasn't Rattler's fault that he didn't catch it. So I overall, as a fan of a team that I felt like 7 to 10 wins is like your best case scenario, I felt pretty pleased with what I saw. As long as that's not the best effort we get all year. You know, if this is the starting point, I feel pretty good. What did you see?
You know, I saw a defense that looks slower. Of course, it could just be the fact that Kyler Murray is, you know, a fast quarterback. He's elusive. Cam Jordan got a sack. He put him up to 20th all time on the all-time sacks.
Not only did he get a sack, he got back there in a hurry, dude. And he's like 95 years old. I was like, I didn't know he could move that fast.
Yeah. But there's times that they look so slow coming off the line, and the running game for the Saints looked good at times. The pass game was hit and miss. I was so worried about Olave. There's a couple times where he went down, he went to the sidelines, and with his concussion history, it was like, oh man, this looks like it could be bad, and he comes back in the game. So that was a positive. I almost want to see him wear one of those.
No, don't say it. You're talking about the Guardian helmet, but I don't even want.
Yeah.
I don't even want to think about it.
I don't like the look. I don't like them, but if they're effective, especially with his history, you know, maybe he should consider wearing one because he's too valuable to the team to get knocked out for several weeks with the TBI, you know. So Rattler was looking good. He's moving well. Moved the ball well at times. Again, this team is going to go as far as the offensive line could take it. They weren't blocking well. There was a lot of times where Rattler was having to get rid of the ball quick or running for his life because the line just can't hold up to a pass rush. So there's some good, but there are still some things that are very concerning. That just makes you think this is going to be a long season in New Orleans.
Well, I do think it's going to be a long season, but I think the offensive line is pretty young. Now, when you said that the Saints defense looked slow, I mean, I don't disagree they did at times, but let's not forget this is the fourth oldest team in the NFL, and I'm pretty sure they have the third oldest defense behind I think the Vikings and Commanders have older defenses. I know the Vikings do. I think the Commanders do. So they're older, but yeah, I mean, I we talked about with the salary cap issues and everything. Like we love guys like Demario Davis and Cam Jordan, but they're not who they were 5 years ago. But that's not their fault. It's just father time. I mean, it's what happens. So, what was encouraging though to me, see, our offensive line is probably that, and our receivers are like our youngest groups, and so I feel like they will continue to improve. But Kamara, what is this, like his ninth year, something like that?
Ninth, 10th, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So he, typically running backs between 7, 8, 10 years, they're just about done. He looked sharp. He looked fast. He looked crisp.
Yeah.
Now they didn't use him a lot in the second half, but that's okay because I feel like Rattler sort of, like I said, came into his own. But I also thought there were some first time coaching things with Kellen Moore that I don't know if
the timeouts.
Well, but see, here's the thing though, and this is what I don't know. I don't know if that wasn't the only thing, but in particular, I don't know if that was let's get to the locker room because I need to get Rattler's head right, or if it was just a mistake on his part. We've only seen one game with Rattler and Moore together, and we've only seen one game with Kellen Moore as a head coach, period.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a little puzzled by that, but I wasn't like a lot puzzled. I was like, all right. I mean, it's not probably what I would have done, but I can see reasons why you would do it that way.
Yeah.
And there were a handful of other things. I feel like we used our timeouts too quickly in the second half. But again, I'm going to give him a little bit of a pass. It's a new regime, new starting quarterback. So that's fine. But you got another game at home, which is great for, a young quarterback and a new head coach. Kind of get your feet wet slowly in a friendly environment.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, overall, like you said, I feel like I agree with everything you said for the most part, but I am trying to be optimistic because I know I said this in the preseason, and I still believe this. I really am excited about the prospect of Kellen Moore, but I hate the fact that we hired Kellen Moore in this season where we're not football season, but this season of the Saints franchise because of the salary cap issues. But what I'm excited about is we don't know. I mean, Kellen Moore could be Dennis Allen, or he could be like the next great head coach, And so what I'm excited about is what's that?
I was just laughing at the way you said that he could be Dennis Allen or the next great head coach. It's quite a dichotomy there between the two. It just
no, that's what I'm saying. Well,
I know
that was my point. Is that he could be trash, or he could be like the greatest coach the game's ever seen. My point is we don't know. And all likelihood, 99% of coaches fall in between those two, and so I think that everything we heard last offseason about Rattler before the season started was he was winning over people left and right in camp during the offseason ahead of his rookie season. He didn't look super great or super comfortable when he came in last year in his 6 starts. I thought he only started 4. They said Sunday he started 6. So he looked okay at times, but he didn't look great. But this time, he looked a little unsure at first and he got more comfortable as the game went on. I'm not saying that one game where he got better as the game went on means he's going to be better. But what we do know is he's got a whole new offensive scheme, whole new offensive coaching staff, whole new quarterback coach, everything. So it's unknown. So I'm not really in the camp where it's like, I think it's going to be a long season for the Saints. And all my friends around me in South Carolina who, love my South Carolina people, but they tend to, when they're talking about their team and when they're talking about your team, tend to just go straight to the negative. And everybody's talking to me about how Saints are going to be the worst team in the NFL. I just don't see it. I think there are 5 or 6 teams worse than the Saints. Do I think the Saints are going to make the playoffs? No. Do I think they are going to be in contention in early December? Yes. I don't think we're going to be, having Thanksgiving talking about how they're already mathematically eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
But my point, all of my point of that, it's not the playoffs. It's just grand scheme of things. I think that we will have some highs and lows, but I'm optimistic. Like, let's use that as a segue to talk about, and we won't talk about the full week 2 complement. We'll talk about that in our review. But for the Saints, in week 2, they play the 49ers in New Orleans with Mac Jones starting. Now, that could be a recipe for disaster because the only tape you've got on Mac Jones is in an Alabama uniform or in a Patriots uniform. So that could work against New Orleans. But anytime you have a backup quarterback in the NFL, generally – now, there is an exception when you're talking about guys like Mac Jones' experience or younger. When you're 5-6 years in the league or less – well – let me back up. Mac Jones is probably right on that threshold where the exception doesn't apply, right? But it could be a Tom Brady situation where he comes in having to, pitch relief for Drew Bledsoe, or in this case Brock Purdy. But it probably won't be. And so typically in the NFL, when you have a backup quarterback come in, there's a pretty significant drop off. Because, they pay one quarterback $50 million a year and they pay their backup, normally like $1 million or less, normally less actually. I guess the new league minimum is 900,000. So probably right at $1 million or maybe, but my point is, I think it could be a good thing for New Orleans to maybe sneak a win, and they don't have George Kittle this Sunday either, which is a big deal.
Oh, that's a big loss, yeah.
Now they still have McCaffrey, and they've got some other players. So I mean, like, I don't feel like the Saints are as good as the 49ers, but I feel like at home, 49ers only have one game film from this regime in New Orleans, and they're missing 2 of their bigger pieces. I think it's an opportunity for New Orleans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kittle's one of my favorite players.
Yeah, best commercials right now too.
He is definitely a problem. And with Mac Jones, I think with Shanahan as coach, he could be the Mac Jones that we saw the first year or 2 that he was in the league when he was taking he was taking the Patriots to the playoffs, because that Mac Jones we're like, all right, well, this is the next Tom Brady, and then.
Well, I don't think anybody was thinking that, but he was good.
but then their quarterbacks coach left or whatever,
Shannon
and
left.
And he fell off, and he kind of fell out of favor with Belichick, and that didn't help either. I don't think he could be in a better situation than he is now with Kyle Shanahan as his head coach, because the dude just develops quarterbacks. So
yeah, well, and that is my one fear. Now the silver lining to that is he's only taken first team reps 1 week. So we'll see. I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting game, and at the end of the day, I think the 49ers will win, but I do think this is one of those rare times when, even though the 49ers are almost certainly a playoff team and the Saints are almost certainly not, this is one of those rare times where I could see New Orleans sneaking out a win. Interesting to note, I just want to make sure. Okay, so there's the over-under in this game is the second lowest over-under total of the week. The only one lower is the Seahawks visiting Pittsburgh. Total over-under is 39.5 in that one. And the Saints 49ers is 40.5. San Francisco's a 3.5-point favorite. I mean, that's about what you expect with a backup quarterback. I mean, I think if Purdy's in it, they're probably a 6-point favorite. You just don't see huge spreads in the NFL.
Yeah.
But I think that's about right. I think there will be more than 40.5 points, though. I would take the over in that. Because this isn't a classic backup versus, first-time starter. Rattler had 6 games last year, had a game. Mac Jones, obviously, we know has started for a few years and just not, in the last year or two. So I think there will be more points than 40.5, but yeah, ultimately I think San Francisco wins, but I think it'll be a competitive game.
Yeah. Yeah, I expect it to be competitive at least. I don't think the Saints come out and just look like they don't belong on the field. Um, I think the 49ers are going to win. But I do think it'll be a fairly close game.
Yeah. So just a couple quick notes. So around the rest of the South, the Panthers are going to Arizona to play the Cardinals at that's in the afternoon window on Sunday. Also on Sunday, in this Sunday night slot, the Falcons are going to Minnesota to play the Vikings. And then the Bucs will play the Texans in the early Monday Night Football game. They normally do their doubleheader like the first week, and in recent years they've done it like the first week and maybe like, I don't know, some random week in the middle of the year. But they're doing it in week 2. So here's the problem. This is the second year I've lived in the Eastern time zone for football season. And the second game is a game that I would typically watch. It's the Chargers versus the Raiders in Las Vegas. But the game does not start until 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. So if I make it through the first quarter, it'll be a miracle. But yeah, so gonna be an exciting weekend of pro football. Just looking through to see if there's any other marquee matchups. So the Eagles go to Kansas City. That's a 4:25 kick as well. And then that looks like that's about it in terms of big matchups for the week. The rest of them, yeah, I don't see any others that are jumping off the page at me. But yeah, so I feel like it was a great first week of football, and we don't have to wait long because in less than 24 hours, the Commanders will be playing the Packers. That will be a good game. That was above my screen. I don't think I'm quite ready to say the Commanders are down and out because they looked a little lackluster in their game against the lowly Giants, and I don't think I'm ready to say. I feel like after the Packers win, I've heard nothing but the Packers are elite. They're dominant. They're going to go to the Super Bowl. Maybe they might go to the Super Bowl, but I don't know if I'm quite ready to just crown them yet. So that'll be an interesting game. I think the Packers will win it, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. Yeah, that could be the best game of the entire NFL slate for week 2.
I don't know. So here's the thing. So we talked about this a little bit. I think Daniels has got a bright future, but the Commanders are the oldest team in football, like the oldest. They have an average age of 28 years, 7 months, and 4 days, which is the oldest team by looks like 6 months, and that's your average age. And they have a total of 10,444.3 days. So the problem for Washington, while I think Jaden Daniels is going to be a fine pro quarterback, and I think that they will probably, they're in a tough division, but probably return to the playoffs. I just I don't know that I'm a super believer and they're going to be competitive in every game because, I mean, we talk about the Saints being slow. The Saints have like a year and a half in the net positive on average, age. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's one thing to remember when we're talking about the Commanders. Is I feel like their new young pieces are all great. I just feel like the problem is, and their old pieces are great, but they're old, you know.
Right.
So we'll see. I mean, I kind of feel like this game will be a little sloppy. I could see the Commanders winning the game, but I feel like if the Commanders win the game, it's because Green Bay's human, like we are talking about. Unlike
Mm-hmm.
some of the other folks, but we'll see. Just whatever you do, if you're an NFL fan, make sure you watch the New York Giants at Dallas Cowboys because that is gonna be a game. I'm just joking. Nobody cares about that game unless you're a Giants fan or Cowboys fan. But
Have you looked at the ticket prices for that week 2? That
for that
Washington
game?
Green. Yeah, well, that's the third highest ticket price. As far as the lowest ticket. The only two that are higher. Well, there's no. It would be the fourth. The highest ticket is Chicago at Detroit. The lowest ticket is $262. Then you have the Chargers at the Raiders. That's $235 for the lowest, and then Philly at Kansas City at $220.
Yeah.
And then Washington Green Bay is $166. Then you get to the Dallas New York game. It's $35 for the lowest.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it is. Well, a couple of things you have to factor into that too. A, nobody cares about the Giants, even though it's a divisional game. B, the Cowboys have the largest stadium in the NFL. It's the early game, which never sells as good as the afternoon game. Because I'm looking at these prices and the Bears Lions is high. It's an early window game, but that I think is just because both of those fan bases, they're really close together. They both travel well.
mm-hmm.
Ford Field is not among the larger stadiums in the NFL, and obviously being a big time divisional game. I think there have been years when the Giants Cowboys is big, but I feel like Giants Cowboys is probably the least volatile of the NFC East, division matchups. But yeah, I'm looking across, and most of these games are between 115 and 150. Yeah, I mean, it's. I think too though you also have to look at. So first of all, Green Bay always has the highest or among the highest ticket prices because they sell out every game.
Mm-hmm.
Every game. So they're always going to be high. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I think, cost of living area, like obviously Las Vegas is going to be high because Las Vegas and California are just high, period.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that is interesting to note. But I would imagine, because I don't really ever look at ticket prices, I would imagine that Green Bay is probably always in the top 5, like every weekend that they're playing at home, because they not only do they sell out all the time, there's the famous stories about season tickets being like as hard to acquire as like Masters tickets.
Right.
So yeah, so that's kind of a snapshot. We didn't go through every game, but that's sort of a snapshot of week 2. So any final thoughts before we pack it up and get ready to watch the NFL week 2?
Not really. It looks like it's going to be a pretty good one. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be really good. So thank you guys for joining us for week 2 of the Southbound podcast. And this will be similar to our format most weeks. We will typically try, this is a little longer because it's the first week and there were some pretty compelling games. But we'll basically talk about the games that that wound up being, really good or dramatic at the end, and then we'll talk about the Saints. And that's kind of how we'll do it. So enjoy NFL Week 2, and have a lot of fun. Invite some people over, and we'll see you guys next week.